It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Kurt and Adele Judas. We're here in Jerusalem. Adele.
Okay, my name is Adele Judas. My maiden name was Bogner. I was born in Antwerp, Belgium in 1936. I was 3.5 years old in May of 1940 when the Germans invaded Belgium and the bombs started flying. My parents, my sister and brother fled Antwerp and tried to escape to Switzerland, where my mother had a brother who had left Poland in the early 30s. But unfortunately, the train that we boarded, which was supposed to take us to Switzerland, took us instead to the south of France into concentration camps because France was already occupied. So we had to pass the border of France. The train stopped. The Gestapo came up and took all the Jews down to these camps. My sister was 11, my brother was 9, and I was only 4 years old. During the following 3 years, I went in and out of these concentration camps. At times I was with my mother, and at other times I remember being taken to children's homes. And one in particular that I recall was located in Beaulieu. It's amazing that I remember all that because I was 4 years old. But I was told when you go through a traumatic experience, you never forget. It remains in your brain. An event that stands out in my mind that happened in Camp Rivesaltes was one day after the morning appel. Appel meant that we had to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning in all weather and stand outside the barracks until they finished their roll call. My mother and I found ourselves boarding the train because we were selected that day to be deported to Auschwitz. For some reason that I call a miracle, before the train was to leave, a guard came to check our names and could not find our name on his list. He therefore told us to get off the train. My father was a carpenter by trade, was very much needed by the Germans. If you had a trade, they kept you alive because you worked for them. They made him a manager and supervisor of 40 other carpenters, and that is how he was able to survive the 4 years in these camps. My mother consequently received the privilege of working in the camp's kitchen, which enabled her to get hold of a little extra food, and therefore she survived. I remember the barbed wire surrounding the camps and the barracks with straw mattresses that we had to use as beds. From 1940 to 1943, I was constantly in and out of concentration camps. To give you an example of the fears and inconsistencies that the Germans put upon us, one day they would gather men only and would deport them to Auschwitz. On another day, they would gather both men and women. I remember one day when they were after men only, my father cut a hole in the ceiling of the barrack, just big enough for a human body to go through, and he lived on top of the beams for 2 whole weeks. At the time, my family shared a room in that particular barrack, and therefore my mother was able to send food through the hole in the ceiling and remove the waste. When the German soldiers asked me where my father was, somehow I knew what to answer them. I can only say that you know instinctively what to say and what not to say, even at the young age of 4, when it is a matter of survival. In June of 1943, the OSE, Œuvre au Secours des Enfants, an organization that helped children to escape, helped us, my sister, my brother, and myself, to leave the camps, and we found ourselves on the way to escape to Switzerland. My recollection of that journey remains very vivid in my mind, even though at that time I was only 6 years old. I remember traveling by train for 2 days, and we wound up at the border of France in Annemasse, where we met 15 other children traveling with one adult. I recall spending another 2 nights in Annemasse, where we were briefed and coached of what to do, when and how to cross the border, and what to say in case we were being caught. After being duly prepared for our crossing of the border, on the 3rd evening, my sister, brother, and I, and this one adult, took a trolley to the outskirts of Annemasse. By following our instructions, we wound up in a forest where we were supposed to meet a guide who would take us to cross the border. I want you to know, his name was Monsieur Langer. And we met him years later at one of the conferences in Washington. He lived to be 104. We waited that night hidden under a tree, lying flat on our stomachs until all the children were able to join us. Don't forget, during the war, you were not allowed to go into groups. So every 15 minutes, another 3 children left. They were older than me. I was the youngest. I remember it was dark. I was scared until we heard the footsteps of the guide who arrived to help us cross the border. Before we could get to Switzerland, we had to avoid many obstacles. We had to cross over rows and rows of rolled barbed wire in total darkness in order to get to an open field. I remember that the older children helped the younger ones over the barbed wire, but by doing so, they also received cuts and injuries on their hands from the barbed wire. After the barbed wire fence, there was a small river, but it was only ankle deep, so the younger children were carried and the older children walked through it. Once we passed these obstacles, there was a clearing, a huge barbed wire fence extending beyond what the eye could see in either direction. My sister, who is the oldest of us 3, had given strict instruction to my brother and myself that no matter what, we 3 had to stick together in case we were caught. My brother was very agile, soon climbed to the top of the fence, which incidentally was about 6 feet high. Suddenly he heard a voice saying in French, "Halte là! À combien vous êtes là? Hold it! How many are you there?" Scared and frightened, my brother jumped from the 6-foot fence to the French side and joined my sister and me in running and seeking a hiding place. We hid in bushes until the guards left with those who had already gone over the fence. The guide then explained to us that they were on the Swiss side and that they were safe. We then climbed over that fence and started talking in louder voices so that we could be heard by those guards on the Swiss side. The Swiss guards were used to this behavior already, since many victims of the Holocaust had climbed over the same fence to try to regain their freedom and escape from the Nazis. All the children were then taken to an interrogation office, and each of us had to wait to be questioned. As I said, I was only 6 years old. They did not spare me from all the questions, such as, "Who helped you over the border?" and many other questions. Finally, they took us to a place where they locked us up for the night, leaving us on straw mattresses and without any food. The next morning, as we looked out the window, we could see a school building across the street. A woman who lived in that building and therefore obviously knew why we were there asked the children how many we were. She returned soon with 19 rolls in a basket. The boys collected and connected their belts. It's almost finished. To one another, and then attached one end to the basket of rolls so that it could be brought up to our window. Since my childhood memories begin with concentration camps, prior to this experience, I didn't remember ever having eaten an entire soft roll. After another day of interrogation by the Swiss, we were then transported and quarantined for 3 months in a detention camp, during which time the Swiss government made sure that we were not bringing in disease, and to ensure that our relatives, in my case, my uncle and aunt in Zurich, would take care of us. Unfortunately, my uncle and aunt could not take care of us when they suddenly and unexpectedly found that we would be their responsibility. Actually, later on when we talked, it was more my aunt that didn't want it. She had 2 children, they were married. My mother comes from a family of 5, and she was the youngest. So I'm the youngest cousin that's still alive. And so suddenly she had 3 children, 6, 11, and 13. So, and she had a Jewish maid who loved us. She never got married. She would take care of us in a pinch, not with, but my aunt sent us to a children's home that was opened up specifically for that purpose, for these children who had escaped the Holocaust. It is now 1946. After 3 years in the children's home, my siblings and I boarded a train with 1,500 children who had taken refuge in Switzerland and returned to Brussels, where we were reunited with our parents. I was now 9.5 years old. I had not seen my mother for at least 3 years and did not recognize her. When I saw my sister and brother embrace our parents, I held back at first. I did not recognize or remember them, and I asked my mother, "Are you my mother?" My parents had been liberated from the camps at the end of 1944 and returned to Antwerp, where they saw complete destruction. Nothing was left of their apartment, and those apartments that were not destroyed had been cleaned out completely. My father, as I mentioned earlier, was a carpenter, and therefore he was hired to rebuild the 3 major synagogues that at that time. Today you have 35 synagogues, but Stiebler, Hasidim, but at that time those were the 3 major. So he got a job. We remained, they let us stay in Switzerland, where we were well taken care of, and when they finally had saved up a little money, they made us come back home, and we were reunited in 1946. As I look back on my childhood, I realize how difficult it was to be separated from my parents at the age of 6. It was far more. It was far from a normal upbringing to be a prisoner at the age of 3 and not know what the next day would bring. Will I be alive tomorrow should never be a question that a 3-year-old needed to worry about. Although I, like many of us who went through the Holocaust, cannot remember all the details of my experiences, what I do remember has left the scar of the past in my heart. Memories that should have been of parks, zoos, and birthday parties are replaced by barracks, bed of straws, hunger, and the fear of dying. The young, innocent years of childhood, with all the special attention, encouragement, and love of my parents, were taken away from me.
Sure, Adele. That's amazing. Adele, what an amazing life story that you have, what you went through at such a young age.
Yeah.
But Baruch Hashem, you had your brother and your sister.
Yeah. My sister, she was like my mother. I mean, she never left me, and my brother took care of me too.
Wow. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Did you go visit your aunt in Zurich, or did
Oh,
you?
yes. Oh, yes.
So you had a connection with her.
Yes, absolutely. When I was 18, at 9.5, I came back to Antwerp, right?
But when you were in the orphanage, when you were,
yeah.
Did she come and visit you?
No, they sent us, no. What they did was, when you had a birthday, that morning, you stayed out of the dining room till everybody was seated in the dining room. And then they started singing in German a happy birthday song. That you knew it was time for you to go in. Of course, I ran, whoever got a present, to the table where the presents were laid out that the Jewish Zurich committee had bought for the child. And I opened up anxiously what I got, And then I went to my seat and had my breakfast. The director of the home came over to me and said to me, "You forgot to open up one present." I said, "What?" So he showed me there was a letter against the wall on top of the table addressed to Adele Bogner from my uncle, inviting me to come to a weekend to his house. And that was the best present I could have gotten.
Wow. And you went?
I did.
And you went with your brother and sister?
No, I that was my birthday present.
Wow.
And but I resent my uncle, my brother, who is 5.5 years older, when he became bar mitzvah, he was in this home. They took him to St. Gallen, which is like 45 minutes by train. And he was bar mitzvah all by himself. And I never was...
You weren't at his bar mitzvah?
It wasn't...
on the schedule.
On the schedule.
And Adele, can I ask, when you were in the orphanage,
yeah,
did you have any notification from your parents? Did you know if they were...
In 1944, the end of 1944, from between the Jewish organization and the Red Cross, we got a notification that our parents survived and they went back to Antwerp.
You must have been very, very... there's no words.
You cannot imagine.
There's no words to know that you have parents.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? When we arrived in June of 46, we were reunited. And we came to the table, and my mother had made, she was a fabulous cook and baker. And my father's sitting at the head of the table. The apartment, like I said, was like for a pauper. I thought I was the richest girl in the world. And I finally, after all these years of wandering, we were reunited by miracle. Everybody from our family survived, which was very few of my friends had both parents that survived. So I was lucky in that respect. But what we were not lucky was in Parnassa. And we struggled, to
make a living.
So when I finished 10th grade, which was a high school specializing to become a executive secretary, I had 2 more years to go. I learned 4 languages, and stenography and typing, and for 2 years. So I was 16 when my father sat me down and said, "Adele, you have to help me pay the rent." Now, in Europe, you get paid once a month. Every 30th or the 31st of the month, they give you your money. I gave the whole thing to my father. He paid the rent and the utilities, and then he would ask me, "What do you need this month? Do you need anything special?" And of course, I was a young lady at this point, and we were so respectful towards our parents. And the love that they showed us, I say we were the richest people in the world. And my father sitting that day at the head of the table, he said, "I'm a multi-millionaire." And we looked at him like he lost it, because we saw the poor home. He says, "Look, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. These are things you can never forget."
Can I ask, is it because they had no money that you didn't see them straight after the war? Because the war ended in 45.
That's right, because my father they put up the Jewish committee in Antwerp, worked to rent hotels out for people like my parents who survived without a penny. And you were given 6 months to put yourself on your feet. And when they found out that my father was a carpenter, they put him to work, and he started to get paid. So he rented immediately an apartment, that apartment that we joined then, and we lived there together in this poor. You know, somebody gave a couch, somebody gave a chair, somebody gave 2 beds, you know. And I thought I was the richest girl in the world.
Yeah, still are.
Yeah, and can I ask, initially, because you hadn't seen your parents for so long, but when did you develop the bond with your parents?
Well, the fact that, you know, I finally was reunited with my parents, and I saw how my mother was a good kite, you know, so was my father. But, so we just instinctively, you know, you felt...
It was the same day?
We developed a good relationship, because those friends that I had who came home either with a father and the 3 children. I have a friend whom it happened, and he had a sister-in-law who came home with 1 child, and her husband passed away. So they married.
Or was killed, the husband was
killed. So they married and had 3 boys together.
Sure.
I wanted to ask. No, I forgot. You heard of Glassman?
Yeah.
Judge Glassman?
Yeah.
I have his book.
Yeah.
You seen his book? Huh?
I've seen the book.
With all the convoys from France?
No.
Convoy 31. His father was deported.
In the Convoy 30, and it's got the name?
It's got the name and everything.
This book has 100,000 names.
80,000.
And you kept a close connection with your brother and your sister through the years?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Blood and flesh.
Actually, these are some of the pictures from the camp I have here.
There was a social worker. At the time she was 22 years old. She kept the children busy, like us. I was 4 years old, 5 years old, through the camps. And we met her also.
These are all pictures.
This is amazing. So could you show these pictures, if you could?
That's the synagogue from my hometown.
So if you could take a seat and you can just look.
Here's the Glassman book.
And if you could just show it, if you could hold it and then.
He wants you to hold the pictures and explain.
If you can show the book. This is the book of...
First show the book.
And this is by... It's a memorial to the Jews deported from France from 1942 to 1944 by Serge Klaasveld. And your parents...
and both my father was in Convoy 31 and my mother 62.
And you have it in the book?
Yeah.
Can we have a look? If one can.
Convoy 31. Your father. July.
Yeah.
You have to look through Judas here.
Here, I'm here.
It's
you
underlined.
want me to...
So, and you have it underlined. Wow, this is inside the book. It must have been very difficult for you to see this.
No, he was happy because he never knew anything.
Wow.
And this book, opened up a lot of the history of his parents.
It's actually it's incredible what he did.
Glassman,
Glassman.
These lists, they were left behind by the Germans.
The Germans
they made 4 lists like this, the Germans.
Wow.
One went with the convoy. I mean, it's in the back of the book. You can read it.
Yeah. Each passenger list of the convoys sent to the east was typed in 4 copies. 2 went with the convoys and were destroyed, as was the copy kept in the transit camp, but the Germans allowed the Jewish Community Council in Paris to keep a copy.
And that's the one he got, Glassman. It's amazing the work he did.
It's incredible.
He's still alive,
Yeah. And could you show these? This is a picture of the shul.
Yeah.
This is our synagogue in.
But show it
Okay.
into the camera and explain what it is.
In your synagogue in
Ehringen, in Germany.
in Germany.
Yeah.
And in Kristallnacht was the synagogue destroyed.
Destroyed, yeah. And we were there.
That was in 38.
38.
And that's the picture of what a beautiful shul, and was destroyed.
Yeah.
And you remember the Kristallnacht?
I mean, when they took us there, yeah, when it was burning.
You remember
Yeah,
the flames?
They were
In
paraded.
38, I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old.
And it's still vivid, the image?
Huh?
You still remember the image of the shul being burned?
No, man, I've been with my father a few times in the synagogue doing that for the holidays, you know, but
But you remember seeing the burning synagogue?
yeah, that I remember.
That's what he's asking.
Wow.
Yeah, this was in some of these pictures are from the camps. I mean,
This was in the...
We were
in
standing on line,
Rivesaltes,
and Switzerland had sent over once a month a truck with rice, and we children had a bowl, and they would fill up the bowl with the
It's
rice.
incredible that you were both in the same camp.
Yes, yes.
It's
But we
unbelievable.
didn't remember,
Sure.
you know. Here, this is the woman that we met years later. She was the social worker who kept the children busy during the day.
And you remember her?
Here, this is me.
Oh,
Hold
let's
on.
yeah, this is you here.
Oh, here, on this one.
Adele, if you can show, this is... And this is in the DP camp.
No, not DP. This is
Concentration.
Oh, this is in the concentration, in the camp.
This is me.
Wow, that's just...
Here's my mother in the concentration camp.
That's incredible that you have these pictures.
This woman, years later, when we met her, we had a reunion of 7
Yeah.
Jews who put their life at stake to try to save the children. And
7 Jews or...
7 Jews. So they got together, and in Washington, we met them, and each one told us. And each time I heard the story, like the Monsieur Langer, I said, I gotta go and thank him.
You want to
He
look
saved
at a
my
baker?
life.
Wow, what a handsome baker. Adele, was Monsieur Langer, was he Jewish?
Yes.
Langer, whoa.
He was Jewish.
You heard of him?
No, but he was... Did he work with Regis Sternbuch? Did he have a connection with...
I don't know.
That's
I don't
possible.
know. But you know what?
We met him.
The OU once presented a documentary that took the guy who made this put it together 7 years for these 7 people who actually were able to talk about how they helped save the children. So of course it was full. The room was full, and the night before I look into the tidbits. That's a little booklet
Torah
that comes in.
tidbits?
And I said, Kurt, we got to go there. That's the history about us.
Wow.
So if we can't go in, we can't go in, but we'll try. So we go to the desk, and we have ready to pay the 60 shekels for the 2 people. And there is a young man there with like a goatee beard.
beard.
And she says, the woman, there is no more room. I said, but this is our story. We went through this. So the guy says, add 2 chairs, let these people go in.
Wow.
After it was finished, and if you have any questions, they brought a mic along. And first a woman asked, is there anybody here who went through with these people through the war? And there were 4 people that got up. 2, my husband and I, a friend of mine who lives on Bartanura, and another person that I didn't know. And in a little synopsis, I said, Monsieur Langer was the one who helped us cross the border, and Madame Samuel in the camp, she's the one who kept us busy as children.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The director of that home that I was in, where I was bar mitzvah, They came here. They lived here in Israel.
In 1974,
And we always went
they
to
moved
visit
from
her.
France. They survived the camps.
And they moved.
And they came and they lived in the German colony on Emek Raphaim.
Wow.
So when we took our first trip in 1969 to Israel, we looked them up in the telephone book and found their address, and we met them. She showed us a book like this. They were social workers. All the children they ever had contact, and they found his picture, his graduation picture from school. He had sent her.
Wow.
You got yourself a very good man here.
Sure. It must have been very emotional when you met them.
Oh yeah, we went there. We went there often. He got injured in one of the wars.
The year after they came here, they came here in '74. He found himself at the bus station, and somebody threw a bomb, and he lost a leg. But they were able to, he was able to survive with a false leg, and he wore long pants, so you didn't know.
She outlived him quite a few years.
She outlived him by.
She was 94 when she died. It was about 4 years ago.
Wow.
No.
What?
94. We are 2020.
She was 94
Yeah.
when she died.
Yes.
A 4 years ago, about that she died. Is it some year?
No.
Okay. Can I ask you both? I mean, what you both have gone through.
Yeah.
What message would you give to the youngsters, to your grandchildren, to the future generation?
Well, what's happening today, it hurts me so deeply because I always thought we went through hell. We lost our childhood, and now I will never see this again in my life. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm on in age. We already, lived our life, good or bad, but I'm worried about the children, the grandchildren, and the future generations. What will happen? Will they be able to that? What I'm proud of, that we have a state, we have a country, we have an army, and it will never happen again that we're going to be taken to be slaughtered like the Jews who had nothing to survive. That's my opinion.
And it's amazing that both you and your husband kept your faith, your emunah, and
That's it.
did a lot of your friends or the people, family, or
They let go the religion. He was always the only one. When we met once a month in Boca when we were retired, and the first 3 years we talked.
You know him?
very, very handsome. Sure.
Was he
Yeah,
handsome?
very handsome. Sure.
Can I offer you a piece
No,
of
I just want to thank you both. Kurt, if you could take a seat again. I just have to have a little message, but so I'll just come in as well. Okay. So I just want to thank you both, Kurt and Adele. You both are miracles. You really are. And what you survived, and not your ordeal, but your life story, it is something, it's so important that we relate this to future generations.
That's why I do what I do.
And I cannot thank you both enough. And Kurt, I know it was very difficult reliving your story when Adele read it so
like I said before, we are some of the younger ones of the survivors, and after us, it's going to be only history. It'll be in the books, and who knows? Maybe by that time, the ones who don't believe in the Holocaust, what do you call it? The deniers. They'll have a field day. You know what I mean?
No, but what you have handed down to your children and your grandchildren, and the beautiful messages that they wrote. It's Am Yisrael Chai, and we have our own country, and we have people like you that are both just incredible people, you are both people that we can strive to emulate, really. You are both so positive, and what you've gone through, instead of like what you said, Adele, instead of being negative, you're smiling. You made such a success of your lives, of both of you. And you brought up a beautiful family.
I was lucky enough, I had my parents to guide me. He did it all on his own.
It's amazing. So I just want to wish you both Mazel and Bracha at Mayvestrim in good health.
Thank
and
you.
You just have nachas and you're so happy together.
You know what I tell
wonderful.
people always say, Kurt, if I call up a friend of mine in America, for Yontav, he said, Kurt, you haven't lost your sense of humor. You know what my answer is? When I do, I'll have a new zip code.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
But really, thank you both
But
so
I want
much.
to tell you, I have my back issue, and I told you about it.
Yeah.
Guess what? I had an attack last night.
Wow.
But I'm fine today.
Baruch Hashem.
So I could talk.
It's wonderful, and I so appreciate it.
You're very
And it's been the greatest honor and privilege, really.
Yes.
So you're going to keep these...
I'll show it to you, and I just want to wish you a Chodesh Tov and a Purim Sameach, and you should just have Mazel and Bracha from your dear family in good health, and Mazel and Bracha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both
Thanks
very,
for coming.
very much.
Thank you. It was our honor for us to be able to relay our story.
Yeah.
Well, it was beautiful. It was so moving and so special.